Cronos doesn't give this watch a model number. I'll refer to it as the Subby, as its design is based on the Rolex Submariner. The Cronos Subby doesn't stand out as a flagrant copy of the Rolex Submariner, as it has a white dial background, which the Rolex Submariner doesn't come with. I was given this Subby by one of my fans to review. The Subby is currently selling on AliExpress for about $192. You have the option of buying the Subby with a number of bezel colors. My Subby doesn't have a fully loom bezel. If you pay $25 more, you could get a fully loom bezel. I'll discuss this further later. This Subby came with a stamped and dated 2-year warranty card, a screwdriver for sizing the watch, and a mysterious hard cylindrical object that appears to be wrapped in a substance that resembles toilet paper. The Subby's bracelet can accommodate wrists up to about 8.5 inches. The finish of the Subby's case, as well as its bracelet, is unspectacular, yet has no issues. I think it's a decent finish for a $200 watch. The bracelet is similar in style and quality to a $350 Seiko that I'll be reviewing later, with exception to one glaring issue, which is the Subby's squeakiness and rigidity. I'll show you what the bracelet sounds like. Note that I'm boosting the volume about 25 decibels, and I'm actively trying to make the bracelet squeak. The sound reminds me of the mating call of the blue-footed booby. It's the squeakiest bracelet I've ever encountered. Also, the bracelet is pretty stiff. I expect that the bracelet's rigidity and squeaking will drastically decrease with long-term use. The Subby's squeaking might be too big of a hurdle for people who are bothered by watch noises. For me, personally, it's not a deal breaker. The bracelet links are connected with screw pins. Yay! You'll be able to size the Subby yourself pretty easily with the supplied screwdriver. The Subby's bracelet has extreme taper, which adds considerably to the comfort of wearing it. The bracelet width starts at 20 millimeters, tapers down to 14.5 millimeters, and then goes back up to 17 millimeters at the clasp. The Subby's glide lock differs from the other glide lock clasps that I've reviewed, all of which use dual pushers to unlock the clasp. The Subby's mechanism is more of a manual process. With the Subby clasp, you push down on the last bracelet link to unlock the clasp, and then push it left or right to set the overall bracelet width to your desired length. You then push the last bracelet link back up to lock the clasp. I can't tell you if the Subby's mechanism is more or less reliable over the long term than the push-button style glide lock, as I have no long-term experience with any type of glide lock clasp. All of the push-button style clasps that I've reviewed so far have had backplay and can be inadvertently unlocked, some more easily than others. The Subby's clasp is nice and narrow and made of nice thick metal with smooth surfaces. It's also really easy to open and close. It's the nicest glide lock that I've reviewed so far. The Subby's clasp has no logo, which I like, as I prefer Rolex Submariner Homage watches to draw as little attention as possible. The Subby's crown has a logo that has some depth. Despite the clasp's stiffness, which, as I've stated, will most likely lessen considerably with time, I can quite easily wear the Subby all day and night, as the taper of the bracelet and the narrow clasp of the Subby is pretty fantastic. Also fantastic are the Goldilocks dimensions of the case. The diameter is 40 millimeters. The width, including the crown, is 43.5 millimeters. The lug-to-lug is 47 millimeters. The case thickness of 12.5 millimeters is reasonable. The Subby is a lightweight at 156 grams. Like the Rolex Submariner, the Subby has a sterile case back. While I can quibble over the end links being a fraction of a millimeter off from fitting into the case properly, nobody is going to notice this. Cronos did an excellent job with the case integration with the end links, with the color matching nicely as well. The Subby lacks drilled lug holes. The Subby's crown pop is good. The crown doesn't have any wobble. Winding is smooth. Action is great. The crown mechanism bats well above the Subby's price point. I really like the look of the ceramic bezel. The loom pip is mostly recessed into the bezel, which I like. The 120 click bezel is too stiff. Also, the bezel teeth are a little rough. This makes turning the bezel a little irritating. This is common with watches with thin bezels like the Subby. There's an easy workaround to avoid irritation for this, which is to press down on the front of the bezel while turning it. The Subby's sapphire crystal registers a very respectable 8 bars with my hardness detector. The Subby suffers from poor visibility in low light. At certain angles, the Subby has a cloudy appearance, as if the watch had taken on water and was fogging up. This issue would be significant enough for me to bitch and moan about at the $300 price point, but not at the $200 price point. I like the Subby's creamy matte background. The applied logo is a nice touch. The text at the bottom of the dial is appropriate. The Subby's reflective hands and indexes, while nothing to write home about, are of adequate quality at the Subby's price point. I think the Subby's contrast could have been improved if its hands were black, though the watch is readable with proper lighting. The Subby's loom is poor. Here's the loom right after the Subby is charged with light from a flashlight. This is what the loom looks like after 1 hour in darkness. I checked the loom again an hour later, and it was dim and unreadable. Somewhere between 1 and 2 hours, the Subby's loom craps out. I think paying $25 extra to get a Subby with a loom bezel would be a waste of money, given that the loom on the Subby's dial sucks. Maybe I'm just old, but I find loomed bezels gimmicky to begin with. According to my time grapher, the Subby is running even in a vertical position and 16 seconds slow in the horizontal position. This is within specification for the Seiko NH35 movement. In my experience, the accuracy of the Seiko NH35 can fluctuate greatly over long periods of time. We can sit around all day debating subjective things like how many hours of staying power a loom should have in a $200 watch, or how many decibels of squeakiness is allowable in a $200 watch. At the end of the day, we all must live in reality, and the reality is that we don't live in a world where $200 watches give the discriminating watch consumer everything that he or she wants. While the dream $200 watch might exist somewhere, maybe even in the near future, I think at the $200 price point, you're probably going to have to make some concessions, and it's really a matter of what type of concessions you're willing to make. In summary, I think, despite the Subby's flaws, it's a good value. The Subby has a lot of good things going for it. It's not too big, it wears reasonably well, it has a sapphire crystal, a nice ceramic bezel, a good crown mechanism, a bracelet that you can easily size yourself, and a really nice glide lock clasp. This is a lot of good stuff for a watch that's currently under $200. Please
Hello,
like,
Citizen
please
Watch
subscribe.
Customer Support. Karen speaking.
Hi, my name is Dr. Bill Brannell. I run the Watch Lab YouTube channel. I'm calling to report another YouTuber that goes by the name of Watch Chris. I'm dropping a dime.
So what seems to be the problem?
Watch Chris has been adding oil to his Citizen Kermit. He's filling that whole fucking watch with oil.
Okay, what seems to be the problem, Mr. Brattle?
Not only is Watch Chris in breach of your user agreement, what he's doing to that poor Kermit goes against the natural order. It is a watch abomination.
What type of oil is this watch?
I think it's Valvoline 10W30. I don't even think it's synthetic.
Are there any other violations you wish to report, Mr. Brattle?
It's Dr. Brattle. I got a doctorate in horology. This is not technically a violation, at least not yet, but you gave Chris a $1,000 barnacle, and he's flashing this around everywhere. I think he plans to add oil to his barnacle.
Has he said he was going to do this?
No, but I can feel it coming. He's going to lube that baby up and do some unspeakably unnatural things to that poor barnacle.
Anything else, Dr. Bill?
Yeah, that $1,300 ProMaster you just released looks ugly as fuck, and it's so derivative. If you give this monstrosity to watch Chris for free, I'm afraid he'll treat it like the second coming of Christ.
We'll take this under advisement, Dr. Bob Rob.